Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, Shannon McGon.
I am not rushing any of you, so if you all go get your coffee, get situated. Good morning. Great to see you all again today. Nice to get the bumper music again. I appreciate that. Welcome. Before everyone sits down, I would just like to get a quick show of hands. Is this anybody's first time in Washington, D.C.? No, you guys really are the grass tops of this organization. You're pros here. Well, since you have been here before, you understand that DC is a city that is literally designed to confuse you. If you take a look at the L'Enfant map of the city and all of the circles and the diagonals, it was designed to keep out foreign invaders, confuse diplomats, frustrate tourists. But you all are experienced here and you understand how the city works, and that design of the city also translates into the political apparatus. The words and the acronyms and the processes that are used in the House and the Senate and the administration are all designed also to confuse you and the rest of us. But that's why we have NAR. We have an advocacy mission to come in and support the policies and the policymakers who support you. And the best way to do that is by telling your story. And with each of you here, you have access to not just the folks in your community and your clients, but you have the ear of a member of Congress who wants to hear that story. So I'm about 4 months into the job now, figured out where the bathrooms are and trying to get through my email. I've learned, I think, about a third of the acronyms that I need to know. But I do want to share with you all a bit of the change that we've done in the advocacy group, especially when it comes to congressional relations and how we're restructuring a bit. So my very first action, other than preparing for Boston, was to do an operational audit of what does our legislative representative team look like, what works, what doesn't, and where we can improve on this. And so this isn't as simply, I have opinions and I'm going to come in and try to implement them. It was, let's talk to all the people who we work with and find out what really works. So this included internally with our own staff and also speaking with a number of FPCs about how communication works, who is advocating in a good way and who could maybe be improved a little bit. It also included talking to other trade associations who envy the organization that we have, and especially our fantastic FPC program. I can tell you it really is the envy of every trade association in town because they don't have anything like it. And it also included the people we are actually talking to on the Hill, members of Congress, key committee staffers, and people within the administration to find out what is it that works well to get something over the finish line versus things that might just seem like busy work and they're not really happening. So with that, we put together in late December a reorganization of our legislative affairs staff. So we have take this back. I don't want to use the term lobbyist because if any of you are familiar with that term, it goes back to 100 or so years ago when people like us used to have to wait in the lobby of a hotel for a member of Congress to finish his bourbon and steak dinner, and then as they're coming out, hey, do you know what's going on with this bill or what's happening with this appropriation, or can we get some inside intel? That is not how it works anymore. Mostly. Not saying it never works that way, but that is not how it works. And so the term lobbyist is something that is just not really used in DC as often as it is. So we have 4 new directors who are working on our legislative representation. These 4 directors report directly to me, and then they're the ones who are canvassing the Hill and working with the committees and with key leadership on what's happening. In addition to that, I also manage our political representatives. We have a number of political representatives who have regions around the country, and they're turning into the direct line of contact with each state. So as the state has an issue that's coming up, instead of saying, okay, well, here's my lobbyist who might be working with Republicans and with Democrats and with the House and the Senate, and they're going in 5 different directions at one time, I have one political representative who understands the politics of our state, and is traveling to our state, and we have these relationships, and that person is going to be the traffic cop to make sure that anything we're looking for gets into the right hands. And then we have the directors, not lobbyists, the directors who are designed in a way that Congress is. So Congress, we have House and Senate and Republican and Democrat. So Helen Devlin is representing House Republicans. Joe Harris is representing House Democrats, and he has a lot of new friends he's making. And Colin Allen is representing Senate Republicans. And then we're also hiring for somebody to represent Senate Democrats, and then bringing in two more junior staffers to come in and help with members who might be on committees we don't deal with on a regular basis. So with that operation, they're working directly with our political representatives to ensure that we know everything that's going on individually with the states. And then we also have our fantastic grassroots program, which includes you, and it's led by Mac and Victoria, and we've got a great organization here. This is my first time at an FPC training, so I'm learning a lot, and I would just echo everything that Brad said earlier. That all was very helpful and relevant. But with those three different organizations all working and communicating together, the representation for this organization is going to be better than it's ever been before, and the communication is going to be stronger. So again, this new structure is something that I think we will see a lot of interaction with FPCs, but also in a more strategic and efficient way. So instead of issuing a call for action that's going out to everybody on an issue that might just be going before one committee, we're just going to be a little bit more targeted. And an example is what we've been here talking about over the last 24 hours, the future of housing finance. This is an issue that is very important to a small number of individuals on Capitol Hill. I can tell you, a member of Congress who's on the Veterans Affairs Committee is not worried about what's happening with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But if you have a member of Congress who is on the House Financial Services Committee or on the Senate Banking Committee, they will know this issue very well, and they have sat in a number of hearings and markups, and there have been multiple bills introduced, and they're going to be much more familiar and engaged. And so our job is to provide you with the tools and the talking points and the stories that you need to take to those members of Congress, and to ensure that we are not just at the table when it comes to the Rayburn House office building, but they're hearing from you back in the district. They're much happier when they're back home in the district. They give you more time. You can grab a cup of coffee. They're not getting pulled into a markup and a floor vote and a delegation lunch. So I think the idea of being able to take those stories back to the district and also working with them here in a more targeted way when you're seeing committee action come up is going to make us a much stronger powerhouse and be able to utilize our FPC program in a much more efficient way. So with that, I think I would be happy to take a couple questions if you all have it, but Victoria's a timekeeper, and I'm probably already over my 5 minutes, so if that... So I just want to thank you all again for the opportunity to work with you, and very excited for what this next year lies ahead. Also, if you have any time to lobby anybody within the organization on May mid-year, we're trying to get the 7 a.m. legislative presentation moved to any time after 7 a.m. 7:15, I'll take it. I promise you I'll give you a better presentation if it's not that early in the morning. So if you can work on that, I'd be grateful. All right. Thank you all, and we'll welcome Victoria back up.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Manager of the Realtor Mobilization Programs, Victoria Givens.
That just sounded just so official. I don't know. I feel way more special now. Well, so how many of you guys are feeling like, oh boy, I'm an FPC, now what? Like, this is kind of, okay, is anybody still just feeling a little fresh out of the gate here? Okay, good. Well, that's fine, because that's my job to help you feel more comfortable, and we're going to get into that today. This is the 45th year of the political coordinator program. So it feels brand new to you, but we've been doing this for a very long time, not necessarily in the form that it is now, but you've always been the face and voice of real estate, as I said earlier, for members of Congress. It's something that the National Association of Realtors is able to bring like no other association in town. We have one realtor for every member of Congress, which I really can't describe how important and what a big honor it is for you all to be doing this, and you are really the gold standard. So your most valuable resource for us is that relationship that you're building. And we talked a little bit earlier about trust, and we're going to go into how to build that trust. How many of you feel like you're building a new relationship with your member of Congress? pretty much. Yeah, I'd say more than half the room. This year, I'd say of the 535 FPC class that you're a part of, most people consider themselves close friends or family of their member of Congress. They sold them their first house, or they went to school together. One of my FPCs beat her senator in a potato sack race in the 6th grade, so he'll do anything for her. It's that kind of thing. But then building the relationship with the 101 new members of Congress, freshmen, that's part of it. And just in general, a lot of you all are switching over. So don't feel like you're starting out on your back foot or anything. If you feel like you're kind of new to this, that's what we're going to work on and kind of be the theme of today. Let's go through your responsibilities. Everybody has a pledge form in the packet that you got in the mail. There's some on the back table. If you haven't signed your pledge and sent it in to me, you can just sign it today and leave it at my chair sometime throughout the day. I'm not going to dictate. I assume everyone here can read, so I don't want to just talk through your responsibilities. I am going to hit the top 3 most important ones on your 9, okay? I don't want to take a dramatic pause here, but advocating on behalf of the Realtor Party is something that seems very matter of course. Like, oh, obviously, I'm going to go and talk about NAR issues with my member of Congress. That seems very obvious, right? It's kind of hard to separate yourself. I don't know if any of you have been through any of these conversations about personal bias or things that we bring to the table when we are advocating. It's hard sometimes to just really put everything aside and advocate on behalf of the realtor issues. But what I mean when I say that is, you're not going in and talking about resurfacing your grandson's football field in the district, or you're not talking about, your health care bills. You can talk about that with your member back in the district when you're having coffee if you want, when you're not on realtor time. It's very important that you take your federal political coordinator job seriously, and I'll tell you that we will hear about it if you're not doing your job. So I said to somebody, I don't mean to be intimidating on Wednesday night, but I am going to be somewhat hard on you guys throughout this process to really stick to your pledge and stay in line with talking on behalf of the Realtor Party is something that seems really easy at the beginning and sometimes you can get confused about while you're going through the process. So if you ever have any questions about it, talk to me, talk to one of your lobbyists, talk to some of your political directors if you need a little bit of direction. The second thing on this list that Mac already just talked about a little bit, and real quick, Jim McGregor right here up in front. Jim McGregor's my boss, and he is the man behind the Wizard of Oz here. He is going to be the person that when we are doing calls for action, he's instrumental in our success and helps us get to that 20% goal that I'm sure you guys hear about a lot of the time. Calls for action mean more when you're a federal political coordinator than they do when you're just an average member. Brad was talking a lot about the mass mailing, and we do make an impact when realtors speak. Congress listens, and it's because of our masses. It's amazing. And your job as FPC is not just to click the button. Your job is to click the button and get 10 people to click the button on your team and get everybody to email their member of Congress. You're picking up the phone, you're texting your member, you're doing everything. You're on social media. It's a much bigger ask when we say participate in calls for action. And we're watching you too, so we know if you're doing it or not. So definitely keep that in mind. Also, if your member is on one of these committees, we're going to be doing a lot more targeted calls for action this year. Maybe not as many big national calls as you all have been used to in the past, but if you're on Senate Banking, your member's on Senate Banking, Senate Commerce, Senate Appropriations, House Financial Services, House Ways and Means, House Transportation and Infrastructure, possibly. These are the committees of jurisdiction where we are going to be doing targeted calls for action and calling upon you as FPCs to really help whip that vote. Something that we talked about with flood insurance, we had a member of Congress and the whip's office calling us asking what the FPCs were hearing on the flood insurance vote. That's how much Congress is listening to us when there's a very big issue before them that matters to realtors. So just to talk about the significance there on your pledge. And then filing your field reports. So we'll go into this in a minute, but it's important to have a quality field report and have it be on time. So that's not waiting until the end of the quarter to rush in a field report about a meeting that you had several months ago, because that defeats the entire purpose. We do have, real quick, I'm going to go into field reports here, but we have a 3 strikes and you're out rule. So I don't want to just start off with all the scary at the beginning here, but it's true. If you don't do your field reports 3 quarters in a row, or you're not participating in calls for action, or any one of these things on your pledge form, we are going to have a serious conversation. Your relationship is obviously the most important, and we want to help you do your job well, but if you're not able to really fulfill the duties incumbent upon you, this is a cream of the crop position, and we expect a lot of it. And so just let us know if you're struggling. We don't want to see that happen, but we will replace FPCs that can't seem to get the job done. One other thing on this list is supporting your member of Congress. I think that seems like, why would that even be on the list? Of course I'm going to support my member of Congress. We've had issues in the past where FPCs didn't really know better. They were giving to their member, and then they were kind of playing the other side of the fence with the other person running against them, maybe with RPAC donations or hosting something in their house because their wife or husband liked the guy. No, that doesn't fly. I'm just going to tell you right now, you're hearing it here in training. You are an FPC for your member of Congress. You are devoted to them. You don't need to step out of that house. And if you're considering it, you need to let us know, or you feel like your relationship is going south or something, and you feel like more wanting to support someone else, we need to know that in advance before you go outside of that. So filing your field report. You'll see on the website, realtorparty.realtor/FPC tools. That is your go-to website for everything. I can't stress enough. If you have a question about anything, realtorparty.realtor/FPC tools, everything is there. Your field reports, your congressional maps reports, everything you hear about today, a link to the FPC Facebook page, that's where you're going to go. So you go to realtorparty.realtor/FPC tools, you click on File Your Field Report, select your legislator, and your name will come up. If it doesn't, for some reason, you need to give me a call. Sometimes the system can be a little wonky, but you should see your name and address, click that, and your field report will pop up. Questions about, who gets my field report? Is it just going into the ether and nobody's reading it? Everyone is reading these field reports. Your lobbyist is reading it. The entire lobbying team actually now is reading it. The entire political director team is reading it. Your GAD is reading it. Your Realtor Party Member Involvement Committee person is reading it. I want to call out real quick, the RPMIC committee, for those of you that don't know, is the committee that your group reports to at NAR, okay? So these are basically the lead FPCs in your state. Some of them are not FPCs, but they're still in charge of helping you get your job done. So we have both Fran Davis here in the front, who's our chair, and Nakia Pippin-McGriff, who is our vice chair over here. If you guys could raise your hands real quick so people could know. Big round of applause for them, chair and vice chair. So they're the people that are going to help you stay on top of your field reports and things like that, but they're also copied on your field report. So you're going to hear about it if they don't see it from you. Why are they important? When you send in a field report that says, I met with my member of Congress and we talked about these issues, the lobbyist then can go up to the Hill and say, oh, hey, Congressman Smith, I heard you met with Mary on Wednesday, and y'all had this great conversation about flood insurance. I wanted to follow up with that because we have this new white paper out. And it provides a synthesis and a second-to-none conversation that members of Congress aren't always getting. It brings that constituent story home every single time. They love you. We want to remind them that they love you and that When we're talking about it here as NAR staff, we're talking about you in the district, and just remind them of that. When should you do it? As soon as you have your meeting, if you can just put it on your phone, like put that bookmark, realtorparty.realtor, FPC tools on your phone, and just file your field report right after the meeting within a couple days. That's the ideal, because then whatever is happening back here in Washington, we can follow up with that member of Congress. And on your field reports, there will be a checkbox that says follow-up needed. Be sure to click that if you need something from the lobbyist or the political rep to call that office. That's what that means. Or research, if they've asked, oh, we heard you guys just released a white paper on GSEs and we'd like to see it. Follow-up needed, that kind of thing. That's what that means. Here's an example of a bad field report, okay? First of all, you'll see that the member met with the member of Congress in November, and then didn't, or they met with them in July and then didn't file the report until November. That doesn't count. You don't want to go back and say, oh, I realize I didn't file a report for the first quarter, and so I'm going to go back and trick the system. That is not helpful. No one cares at that point, okay? Not that we don't care, but it's, okay, so you met with them, woo. Also, talk to my member on the back deck, like, lovely. So glad. This tells me nothing, okay? We want to know what you talked about. Why were you there? What, did he have any questions? This does nothing. So I'm not saying don't file it, but you can do better. Here's a better example of a field report that's not so good, that might not be so obvious. I'm going to read it out loud, even though I know you can read, because I do think it's important to just drive home. Sometimes, I use a very obvious example of a bad field report. This says, I had lunch with my congressman and I delivered the RPAC tech to his campaign effort, and I brought up our recent NAR positions, ensuring that he's on our side. His basic philosophy is the same as the realtors, and he's appreciative of our support in his campaign efforts and looks forward to assistance during our campaign. Can anyone tell me why you think this is not a good report? Delivering the check and lobbying, exactly. Boom, A+. He gets, the rose ceremony, y'all, because we do not ever want to do quid pro quo, okay? My colleague April Gavin is going to go into this specifically in her presentation, but here's something to just remember, because it can kind of get a little gray when you're delivering the check. It's easy to want to talk about the issues. Talk about the issues in the past. You can thank your member of Congress for being with us on tax reform or flood insurance or whatever they've done in the district. I really appreciate what you did. You really helped down ticket with the city council or whatever it is in the past, okay? That's fine, great. You can talk about what's going on. That's when you're talking about your son's football team and how your daughter did in gymnastics or what they're doing, giving that check. You're not asking for favors, and you're really not talking about the issues. If they ask you about what's on the mind of realtors, you can say, oh yeah, well, we're working on this. But you're not bringing up any bill numbers when you're delivering a check, and you're not lobbying. That's a really good way to put it. So this is just to reiterate that point, not to steal April's thunder, but then don't write about it if you did it, okay? No dice. Okay, but here's a super helpful field report. Again, I'm not going to read it for you, but I'm going to tell you what works. This member delivered their field report on time just a few days after they met. He met with the member and his district directors, so talking about what staff was in the meeting, how long the meeting was, where the meeting took place, what they discussed, and what their concerns were. This person brought a team member. The reason that you have a team is to make yourself look better, because we're not perfect, okay? You know you're gonna go in and talk to your member of Congress about something that you're not so great on, and we know you guys wanna be just the, shiny bright star in the room, that's great. But if you have someone better in your district that can talk about condo rules or maybe rural land use or something super arcane that you don't deal with because you're a residential realtor, bring that person along, because Again, members of Congress, like Brad said, they're not experts. They want to be, and they need you to tell them that story. And when you bring a team member to tell that story, you're going to get the credit and knock the meeting out of the park. Talking to them about what happened, and if there's any kind of follow-up necessary, this is just a nice little report. All to say, we don't need a sonnet. I don't need 3 pages talking about, what you had for breakfast and then what you wore to dinner that night. Like, don't need all those details, but these are the kind of details that we really, really like. Okay, now we're just gonna move right along here, and if you guys have questions, you can shoot your hand up, but this is rapid fire because we're on a time crunch, okay? The hub, how many of you are already on the hub? Good, that was kind of a trick question because you're enrolled in immediately, okay? You became an FPC and then I put you in there, okay? So you've already gotten messages from the hub. This is the place where you're going to interact online. It's kind of like your new realtor chat room. Only committees are on this. This isn't 1.3 million members on the hub, but this is where you're gonna ask your questions. Within the hub, there's a library. All of the newsletters that you're getting, is everybody getting their bi-weekly newsletters from me in their inbox? Okay, hopefully so. If you're not, come see me at some point today because those are mucho importante. This is not the time on the hub to talk about, again, hey, I just adopted this new puppy and look how cute, and my granddaughter, Great, that can be on the Facebook page. We love that stuff for Facebook. The hub is for work business, okay? This is for May meetings. This is to find out what's happening, the latest talking points on when you come up in May, when you're going down in the district. If you have a question for your RPMIC person, you can post it here. This is what you use the hub for. There's a live chat on the hub of NAR people who are just sitting there waiting for your burning, salient, muling questions, and they're a resource for you, so use it. That's what it's here for, okay? That's all I'm gonna spend on the hub. There are videos when you go on there. If you're confused about it, just go online and you can watch some of the videos for a little more in-depth on that. All right, several of you have asked, I get this question a lot when we onboard FPCs, they're still onboarding staff on the Hill right now. So what I thought about doing is printing out for every single person a little one-pager of all the staff in the offices that you're starting with, but it would pretty much be outdated within a day or two of me giving it to you because they're still just plugging in their phone up there, really, okay? So what I want to give you is the tools to figure out what the email is for the chief of staff, legislative director, legislative assistant. Going back to the worksheet we did this morning, this is the formula, okay, for everybody on Capitol Hill. And you're going to get a copy of these slides, so don't worry about it. But it's firstname.lastname@mail.house.gov or firstname_lastname at the senator's last name, so like Cornyn.senate.gov, okay? When you call the office, this is how you find out who the staff person is on your issue. It's a quick phone call. Hey, I'm Susie Q. I'm the new key contact. No one knows what an FPC is. That's the other thing. When you're introducing yourself to a member of Congress, you don't need to say FPC. They'll find out. Some of them already know. But just say you're the key contact for realtors, okay, in the district. And that will make all the difference. There is an introduce yourself to your member letter on the realtorparty.realtor FPC tools page, which I'm going to say a million times today. There's a letter template that you can download, and then you can kind of change it yourself, and it gives kind of the history of NAR, the history of the program, and why you guys are so special. So you can use that. But just call the office, ask them who the chief of staff is, the legislative director, and who the legislative assistant is that handles housing issues. Now, they're probably not going to be able to tell you that third one because it's probably 7 people. Housing issues covers a lot, but it will at least give you, they'll give you a name and then you can go from there. And once you introduce yourself, you can ask them, if you're ever leaving, you please give me the name of the new person, because they're always changing. Building that relationship with staff we'll go into in a minute, but they're always moving from office to office, and it's always good. You'll then all of a sudden know somebody in an office that was in the House and now they're in the Senate or something like that. So just keep that in mind when you're contacting staff. Does anyone have questions on that real quick? Yeah.
I'm Marsha Franks from Tennessee, and I'm representing new Senator Marsha Blackburn, who was in the House. Would I have access to her FPC when she was in the House? Because that was a different person than me.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. The question was, she's taking over for an FPC who represented Marsha Blackburn in the House, and now she's moving over to the Senate, and that's definitely something I would reach out to your state government affairs director, or I can send it to you, and you guys should connect and be on the team, and we can get you guys connected, because that would be an awesome mentor for you.
Can we see his field reports, though?
Yeah, we can easily help you with the field reports, yeah. Yes. You cannot see anyone else's field reports. That's one thing. It used to be that you could log on and there was just this lovely, utopia of field reports, and you could look at anybody's and any time, and we decided to clamp down on that just because of security reasons. We didn't want any press getting to the field reports or members of Congress. When you log in, you will only see your name. If you're trying to log in for someone else or file their field report, you can't do that. If you did participate in a meeting and you want to write down, it's not your member of Congress, you just go down to your field report and you click Other, and you fill out your name, and that's the field report that you do. Okay, I don't know where I am on time, so I just want to be cognizant of it. Mac is telling me that we need to really speed it up here. Okay, I'm going to give you top 10 things that Hill staffers hate to hear, and then we're going to speed through the do's and don'ts, okay? This is basically, I hope that this is common knowledge to most of you, but some of it might be a surprise. So when you go in and your meeting is with staff, there are some members of Congress who are just only going to give you staff. So you should not be shocked by that. These folks might look like they're 15 years old, but they are way overqualified, way underpaid, and the chick that's at the front office desk that is answering the phones in 2 months is going to be, the legislative director, and in a year will be the chief of staff. So you should pay her some respect. These staffers are former attorneys. They've been on both House and Senate side. They've moved around, and they should command your utmost respect. They are the ones that are walking with the member of Congress down the hallway, and the member is saying, oh, hey, Joe, how do I vote on this bill? And he's going to say yes or no, and that's how the member is going to vote. So even though you have that relationship with your guy, the relationship with staff is just second to none. So don't go in and you wouldn't say this anyway, but it's disrespectful. If you're not meeting with a member of Congress, it's no big deal. Make sure that you're only providing a one-pager. We like to say give bullets in advance. I think you heard Brad say that. Think about a pre-meeting, not a leave behind, but a leave ahead is always a good thing to do, and keep it short. Don't bring up money, and the staffers aren't going to know this anyway, but don't say, oh, how much did you get to vote this way? That's just poor form. I think we talked about knowing the bill number, but don't assume that they know what it is. You want to bring the bill number, and then you need to inform them. They have 20 meetings a day, and you want to make sure that you're getting your facts straight right there. Don't walk in without an appointment. You can stop by and say hi, but no, be cognizant of time, have an appointment, be respectful. Don't go to a meeting and not have an ask. I think right now you can have an introduction, right? This is the first quarter of a new season, so this doesn't really apply. But in general, don't go to a meeting and have nothing to say. You want to leave the meeting having asked something. Members of Congress, much to your surprise, they want to say yes. They want to get to yes. They want to hear you. And if you can ask them where they are at, genuine inquiry is a very good thing. And getting them to that, yes, that will be helpful. That will be helpful there. Side advice. We have 10 or more people in the group. Look, in May, it's a cattle call. I know that there are a lot of people, but in general, we'll get to that in a little bit. But in general, you want to keep your meetings to 3, 4, 5 people max. okay? You can have a lot better meeting that way than if you bring 20 or 30 people. Don't question the member of Congress or the staff. They're right, not you. What do you mean we have to stand in the hallway? People get really offended by this. They go up there and they're like, oh, our meeting had to be in the hallway. They're really crammed on space up there. They're sitting, their computer is here, and then there's a desk and there's a desk. There's no room to have a nice, luxurious conference room meeting. It has nothing to do with you. It's just busy. They are meeting in the hallway. It's just as important a meeting if you're not in the member's office, so don't take it as anything other than it is. This last one, no, I'm not a constituent. I mean, look, if you have a business in the district, I think that that's great. I think in general, members of Congress really want to hear from their constituents. And so if you're not, then it's going to be harder to break through the clutter, but that's not always the case. And most of you are constituents anyway. So to drill down, I think Brad went through a lot of these, and so I think we will just go through. Look, be prepared, plan your strategy, choose your talking points. We give you a lot of them sometimes. You don't need to hit every single talking point in your meeting, okay? Just pick one or two that you have the best stories for. Make sure you're organized, and make sure your lobbyist knows that you're going to have a meeting. During the meeting, make sure you have your business cards and present them, okay? Explain why you're asking for what you're asking. Don't yammer on for half an hour, okay? Ask the senator. This goes back to the genuine inquiry thing that I talked about before. Ask them what their position is. Even if you think you already know, just say, why do you feel that way? And you might learn something new. It really will help you address it. Yes? John, yeah. Gifts, April is going to get into, pretty much no. I would just stay away from gifts in general. If you're in the district, you can bring cookies or something. There's a dollar value on it. I think it's like $5 or something. It's really, after campaign finance reform and McCain-Feingold, the lobbying gift rolls are a little dicey. It's like, you can give them something they can eat on a toothpick and maybe like a hat, but then you're like, how much was the hat? And if it was a cowboy hat, it's really expensive. I mean, I don't know. So it's kind of hard. So I would say usually no, just to be safe. But being a memorable person, I mean, there are other ways to be memorable than bringing the gifts. And admit what you don't know. There's no sense in trying to fill in the gap sometime in research or statistics that you don't know. Just say, I'll get back to you on that. It's really easy. At the end of the meeting, you want to give the mini handouts and thank the staff, the office for the support the member has given. One thing I always say is write a thank you note, thank you email, and if you can mention the staffer's name who was in the meeting and say how amazing they were in the meeting, it's probably more likely it's going to get to the member's desk, right? Like, you're telling them how great they are. So that's what I would recommend. Write that thank you note. Make sure that you're going to be a resource. We're going to talk about, I'm going to turn it over in a minute to my two colleagues, Tyann Harrison and Jessica Lautz, who can talk about the resources and just the amazing depth and breadth of knowledge that you have to tap into at NAR and share with these members of Congress. Follow your field report and make sure that whenever they do or say something good, this is one of those things that you can set up in your little Google alerts, like when is my member of Congress in the press, or when does my member of Congress introduce a bill. Another great resource is thomas.gov. You can go see all of the bills that your member of Congress has introduced, and you can set up a little search tool for it to email you when they introduce something new, and you can look at the title and say, oh, I think we agree with that. You check with your lobbyist or your political director to make sure that we agree with that, but then thanking them and saying, hey, that's great. Thank you so much for making that comment about GSC reform or whatever the latest news is. So really quick, one of those resources that they're not going to touch on is an RPR report. You all have a printout that you got in the back. This is one of those things that you can hand to your member of Congress and they love it. We can generate these in May with our congressional maps reports, but basically they give all of the statistics, housing statistics in the district for what's been going on kind of in the region. You'll see that example and you can generate your own. Each FPC has their own unique login. You just go to nar.rpr.com and select do these steps. There's a how-to video on there. It's very obvious, and I'm not going to go through it here because we don't have time, but you click on the video and it'll show you how to run a report, and if you have any questions, you can just call me. It's also linked on, the video is on your realtorparty.realtor FPC tools right there. I'll say it again. I wonder, that should be a question later. How many times did Victoria say the website? I don't know. So if you ask me, like, what's our website? I'm going to laugh at you. Okay, so without further ado, I think there's one thing I want to hit before you guys, can you guys make it go back one slide? I want to say in May, we have our May legislative meetings. That's your next required training in person. Right now, I want you to just write on your calendars the most important meetings that I want you to be at in May. You will have your lobbyist salons on May 14th at 9:30. That means getting into Washington on the 13th, okay? Your stipend is $1,000. What that means, you will submit an expense report to your state and they will submit it to us, and that covers your travel and your hotel. It doesn't go all the way, so I don't need to hear about it. It just is a little drop in the barrel, okay, for what you guys are actually going to spend, but at least it's a little bit of something. $1,000 should go, you know, far enough, right? When it comes, we're going to stay at the Churchill Hotel. If you guys didn't get in the lottery, totally fine. Don't sweat it. The Churchill is right across the street from the Hilton in DuPont, and you can walk right up to Headquarter Hotels. So it's a wonderful little boutique for the FPCs, but the room block is only 150. So when registration opens next week, I think it's February 12th, Beth, I don't know, 12th or 13th, just be on it and book your room on the room block, okay? Now, member expense reports. For this meeting, I've gotten a lot of questions. All of your expenses are covered. If you booked through Ovations, and I think your hotel was already paid for, if you booked through Ovations, that was also taken care of. Whatever expenses you had $125 per diem to spend. Just put your receipts together. The expense report form is on the realtorparty.realtor FPC tools, and you can click on it and find it. I can also email it to you, email me, and you email that form with your receipts to expenses@realtors.org after this meeting, and you'll get reimbursed within a week or so, okay? And we're going to talk about teams after a while, but just another deadline as far as you've got your calendar out right now, and I know you're jotting it down, you know, furiously, all my important dates. Your FPC teams are due March 8th, and we have a shared Google Calendar, shared Google Doc, so you can just input your teams, and it's all going to be on the website.